I will read from the book Magic Words for my reading practice. Here I am. Mutual vulnerability fosters closeness, but getting to the point where two people are willing to be vulnerable with each other is tough. Everyone is worried about putting themselves out there, saying too much, or not having their efforts reciprocated. Many people are willing to go second, but few are willing to be first. The fast friends questions help. They don't start too big, but they also don't stay too small. They start safe and they build, becoming increasingly probing and revealing. And by requiring both parties to respond, they ensure everyone is contributing, deepening trust. The sustained, escalating, and reciprocal self disclosure strengthens interconnectedness and can bring any two people closer together, making magic. It's often been said that there are no stupid questions, but there are certainly better and worse ones. Questions help us collect information, but they also communicate things about us, direct the flow of conversations, and build social bonds. Consequently, we need to understand which questions to ask and when to ask them. Here are 5 guidelines to consider. The first one is ask for advice. Not only does it garner useful insights, it makes us seem smarter as well. Follow up. Asking questions makes us look good and facilitates positive interactions, but follow up questions are particularly useful because they show we are interested and care enough to learn more. The third one is deflect difficulty. When someone asks an unfair question, asking a related one back allows us to direct the conversation in a different direction, showing interest while keeping personal information private. Avoid assumptions. When trying to get people to divulge potentially negative information, be careful of questions that assume things away. Start safe, then build. Deep self disclosure requires social connection, but to get to the point, people need to feel safe first. So, to deepen social relationships or turn strangers into friends, start simple and build from there, encouraging reciprocal self disclosure. Knowing when to ask and when can help us make better impressions, collect useful information, and foster more meaningful connections with those around us. Beyond questions, though, there are another type of magic word that deserve attention, and that is the language of concreteness. The next chapter is leverage concreteness. A few years ago, I was on the way to the airport when I got the text every traveler reads my flight had been cancelled. I had been on the road for a couple days and was looking forward to getting home. So this was less than ideal. Further, I had picked this flight so I could make it home in time to put the kids to bed. And now, rather than being there or at least spending more time with the consulting client I had come to visit, I would be stuck at the airport. To make matters worse, the airline had tried to rebook me, but rather than a direct flight later that day, I had been rebooked on a connecting flight the next one. Now I was really pissed, so I called customer service to try to fix things. The agent on the other end of the line was less than helpful. Rather than actually listening or trying to really understand the problems, they kept walking through what felt like a script, using stock phrase after stock phrase in an attempt to show they cared rather than putting in the work of actually caring. After 20 minutes of back and forth, I was able to get onto a waiting list for a direct flight later that evening. but by then I was pretty furious. The kind Uber driver who had been forced to listen to the conversation offered his condolences, and we ended up striking up a conversation. I mentioned how frustrated I was, but also how bad I felt for the customer service representatives who had to deal with everyone's problems. It was not their fault that the flight had been cancelled, yet there they were, fending off angry people like me all day long, one after the other. It seemed to me like a tough job, but the Uber driver said it was quite the contrary. He mentioned that his daughter worked in customer service for one of the airlines and loved it. In fact, she was so good at making customers happy that the airline had promoted her to teach other agents how to be more effective. At first, I was surprised. Making customers happy in this context seemed quite difficult. Most callers are dealing with cancelled flights, delays, or lost bags, and it was not like the agent could snap their fingers and magically make the problems go away. But as I thought about it more, I started to wonder if his daughter was so good at dealing with difficult situations, what was she saying that helped patch things up? Beyond what agents could offer, example a credit or alternate flight, might there be certain ways of communicating that make customers more satisfied? To study that question, Grant Packard and I assembled a data set of hundreds of customer service calls to a big online retailer. Someone from Arkansas whose luggage wouldn't unlock, someone from St. Louis whose shoes were defective, and someone from Sacramento who needed help returning a shirt and didn't fit. With the help of a transcription company and a team of research assistants, we turned the recordings into data. We transcribed the calls, separated out what the agent and customer had said, and even measured vocal features such as pitch and tone. Each customer called for a different reason, but many calls followed a familiar script. The agent introduced themselves, the customer outlined whatever issue they were having, and the agent tried to solve it. Attempting to sort out why the luggage wouldn't unlock, figuring out what was wrong with the shoes, or helping the customer return the shirt. The agent would look in their system or chat with the manager and collect whatever information was needed. Then, after hopefully resolving the issue, they would explain what they had found or done, see if the customer had any more questions, and say goodbye. But while the calls themselves had a similar structure, the outcomes were quite different. Some customers were happy with the service and found the agent quite helpful, others not so much. Not surprisingly, part of this was driven by what customers were calling about. Some called about problems with their accounts and others called about trouble with an order. Some called about bigger issues and others called about smaller ones. But even controlling for what people called about, customer demographics, and dozens of other factors, how agents talked played an important role. A certain way of speaking boosted customer satisfaction. And to understand that way of speaking, we had to understand a fourth type of magic words, what's known as linguistic concreteness. Three ways to apply it are to: first is make people feel heard, second is make the abstract concrete, and the last one is know when it's better to be abstract. How to make people feel heard? Some things are quite concrete. Doors, tables, chairs, and cars are all specific, tangible, physical objects. You can see them with your eyes and touch them with your hands. You have a clear sense of what they are and can even picture them in your mind. If asked to draw what a table looks like. For example, even a 5-year-old can do it. Other things, however, are less concrete. Take love, for example, freedom or ideas. All these are intangible concepts that are tougher to grasp. They are not physical objects, so we can't touch them, and it's harder to picture them in our minds. Ask someone to draw democracy, for example, and you would probably get a blank stare. It's not clear what democracy looks like, if it looks like anything at all. Beyond some things being naturally more concrete than others, though in many situations the same thing can be talked about in more or less concrete ways. Denim leg coverings, for example, can be described as pants or jeans. Pie can be described as really good or mouth-watering good. And rather than calling something a digital transformation, it can be described as enabling customers to buy things online as well as in the store. In all cases, the later version, jeans or mouth-watering good, is more concrete. It's more specific, vivid, and easier to picture or imagine. The same goes for the customer service calls we examined. A service representative answering a request to find a pair of shoes, for example, could say that they would go look for them, those shoes or those lime green Nikes. Someone responding to an inquiry about a delivery could say the package will be arriving there at your place or at your door. And someone discussing a refund could say, we will send you something, a refund or your money. Again, in all three examples, the latter versions use more concrete language. Those lime green Nikes is more concrete than them at your door is more concrete than there, and your money back is more concrete than refund, which is more concrete than something. The words used are more specific, tangible, and real. These variations might seem like simple turns of phrases, but they had an important impact on how customers felt about the interaction. Using concrete language significantly increased customer satisfaction. When customer service agents used more concrete language, customers were more satisfied with the interaction and thought the agent had been more helpful. And the benefits of linguistic concreteness extended beyond how customers felt. When we analyzed almost 1,000 email interactions from a different retailer, we found similar effects on purchase behavior. When employees used more concrete language, customers spent 30% more with the retailer in the following weeks. Talk may seem cheap, but this time is it more than paid off. Whether solving problems or selling products and services, frontline employees whether solving problems or selling products and services, frontline employees deal with dozens of customers a day. Call center representatives go from one call to the next, helping one customer with a faulty suitcase and another with a website login issue. Retail employees go from helping one person find a jacket to helping someone else return a pair of pants. And salesperson often go from one pitch meeting to the next, touting benefits to various clients. In situations like these, it's easy to fall back on a set of stock phrases. I would be happy to help with that or sorry about the issue. Whether the that or the issue in question is a jacket, pants, or anything else. Such abstract generic response helps save time and effort because they are applicable to almost any situation. But that wide applicability has a downside. Imagine shopping for clothes. You find a t-shirt you like but can't find the grey color you are looking for. So you ask two employees for help. One employee says, I will go look for that, and the other one says, I will go search for that t-shirt in grey. If you had to pick one, which employee would you say did a better job of listening to what you said? When we asked hundreds of people questions like this, the latter more concrete response, I will go search for the t-shirt in grey, won by a landslide. Generic responses, example, I will go look for, that can be used in any situation, but this generality means they are not very specific or concrete, and consequently, it's less clear the person speaking abstractly actually listened. Thank you. That's it for the day.